Hi, and welcome to the video that will review the accuracy of my predictions for the previous week of August 12, 2019. And those predictions were based on astrological transits, and they were primarily about the geopolitical events, weather, market, etc. So just a quick review of the market direction. I pretty much predicted that the market will be going down every day of the week, and it actually went up nicely on Tuesday, as well as there were some mixed some indexes were up, some down on Thursday and Friday, and then we did have, as predicted, market was down on Monday and Wednesday. So let's see, especially on Wednesday there was really quite a large drop, and it was, I guess, the 800 points for Dow Jones, which was the largest drop in the year apparently. Let's see. I did expect that the maybe a stronger volatility would be on the 15th, which would be, I believe, Thursday, but the actual volatility occurred the day before. And the reason I expected that there will be a stronger volatility on the 15th because it was the day of the full moon. Usually the full moon and new moon see kind of a stronger volatility in the markets. And in this case, it occurred the day before, so I'm not sure. Usually, I guess, things kind of increase before the aspect is exact, so maybe that's what had happened. Let's see. For the other kind of predictions that I had was, I predicted that there will be strong focus on the movements in gold and or silver, and in particular that since we had the rally in gold, I guess, the previous week, that it will peak somewhere on the 12th, either the morning on the 12th, and then we'll start, basically the gold price will drop either in the evening of the 12th and or in the 13th. And we did have a drop in gold on the 13th as the market went up on Tuesday. So that was interesting. And let's see, I also expected that there may be some increased sort of volatility in the gold prices on the 15th. Again, I didn't really see that so much. And what's interesting to note here is that the predictions in terms of the movements and prices of gold versus movements in the markets actually are based on slightly different sort of transits in particular, which is why I had predicted market down for the week, as well as at the same time gold also dropping in the 13th, because when I look at the aspects, or transits rather, either in general or to particular countries' charts, those indicate, to me that there's some stress perhaps, and that would indicate, you would expect market down, unless of course the stress, sometimes, bad news mean good news for the market, and then I can't really, at least I haven't figured out how to fine tune it to that. But the prices of gold seem to be corresponding often with transits to the US chart. So those are somewhat independent of the global transits. In this case, the move in gold down on the 13th was specifically based on the transits to the US chart. And on the 15th, what I thought was going to, the movements in gold, the prediction was based more on the global transits. So it is interesting to know that the movements in gold prices are actually closer related to the transits to the US chart as opposed to the global transits. So let's see. Other ongoing predictions, I have the long-standing predictions about increase in earthquakes and mudslides and collapses of various old buildings, reshuffling in the governments. We do have ongoing geopolitical tensions with, including US, Iran, of course, US, China, clashes in Hong Kong, tensions between India and Pakistan. Some of these, of course, have been going on for some years, but there are some kind of peaking of these, again, expected in 2019 and 2020, and this week was no exception, but increasing kind of stressful aspects would be coming up again in September of 2019, and then subsequently, I guess, really strong kind of tensions may be expected in January of 2020. This week I didn't see news about any super major volcanic eruptions or earthquakes, maybe like 5 plus on the Richter scale. But like I said, this week right now planets are not as closely aligned, and there weren't additional faster moving planets triggering Pluto-Saturn conjunction. So I'm not surprised that there weren't necessarily huge, earthquakes, particularly this week. But the increased probability of such, activity remains for, like I said, 2019 through 2020. Another ongoing transit we have, which again is not super close right now, but is going to become kind of more precise in September, is the square between Jupiter and Neptune. And those usually correspond with some additional increased events in like oil, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, infectious diseases on the rise, bad sort of weather that involves excessive flooding, rains, and or increase in sort of activities that are weird or involve deceptions, illegal activities, lies, pollution, poisons, drugs, and or involve places of worship. So we have sort of ongoing events that maybe have already started, weeks ago, but again, this transit has been unfolding also since about April. We have a series of floods in India, where we have hundreds of people, basically have died, millions are affected. Heavy monsoon rains have been causing flooding, like I said, since about July in India. I guess that's maybe an annual event. I'm not sure how bad this year particularly is, but we have still September to look for where, these kind of events may worsen. And we do have news from Bangladesh, where again, for some time since July, they've been grappling with the worst dengue fever in its history. So that is something that is kind of worse this particular year than in some other years. And again, with Neptune square Jupiter, I would expect these kind of weather events or focus on oil to be kind of worse than, in some years, maybe in a decade or something like that. We also had, of course, ongoing Ebola outbreak in Africa. And as far as other news related to drugs, and again, I'm just highlighting some headlines that I've come across. I'm not doing a very thorough research of every single topic. Have seen that on the 15th of August, there was some new tuberculosis drug approved by FDA called, I guess, Pretomanid. And this is a third TB drug having been approved in over half a century. So again, this is not a very frequent event, and it is interesting. Then tuberculosis has sort of popped up in the news. We had also, I guess I didn't cover it in my predictions previously, but there was some news a couple weeks ago about the TB outbreak in a German school where over 100 kids were affected. And with Pluto conjuncting Saturn being, like I said, an aspect that will be in place through 2020, it also often corresponds with really severe widespread epidemics of various infectious diseases, or some disease that is really affecting large numbers of population and basically leads to basically losses, either financial and or literally loss of life. So something like AIDS epidemic. And so any sort of epidemics that will become kind of well known in the news or pop up in the news, which is what I just mentioned, the dengue fever, Ebola, TB, so something like that would be worthwhile, I guess, to keep sort of track of those, because these are the areas where problems may intensify again as we go into 2020, where the Saturn and Pluto will be getting closer and closer together and will be triggered by other transits. So let's see. Another news that I had to do with basically 13th through 15th of August, as well as 15th, 16th, kind of globally and also for China, seeing increased focus on retail sales, social media, contracts, agreements, as well as communication and transportation businesses. And there's several predictions again globally and as well as for China. I said that there may be possible some announcements of either the new goals or some new vision, and something that may affect the market volatility. And indeed, we had on the 13th announcement by US that they have postponed the tariffs, and then particularly some of those involved, devices that you would use for communication. And there was also another follow-up decision by US on Friday to exclude specifically certain, like routers and modems, which again have to do with communication. And I guess on the 13th, the specific items here I'm reading for which the tariffs were postponed to apparently help US stores to stock up for the December holidays included like cell phones, laptop computers. And so again, we have this focus on communication devices as well as retail sales and tariffs. So all of that was predicted kind of in several series of various predictions, both globally, being, stronger focus on retail sales, communication, transportation, as well as specifically for China, there being some sort of a changes, either new vision or announcements that may be related to communication, transportation, and affect market volatility. Another sort of announcement that came out of China around that same time, I guess it was on the Saturday, the 17th, that a state agency there has successfully launched a rocket for commercial use. So again, that's another kind of accomplishment, a new project that relates to communication. Another set of news that I had predicted that I saw that there were some follow-up events that matched that was that for the August 15th or 16th, I predicted that there may be news about some disruptions related again to communication and or transportation businesses, such as, power service outages, flight cancellations. And we did have some news. So on the 15th, there was news about Russian airliner being passenger airliner struck by a flock of birds, and that plane had to be landed without, I guess, the wheels, just like belly landing on the cornfield near Moscow, and there were 223 people on board. Everybody survived, so I guess that was a lucky landing right there. And also on the 16th, there was news, which again, both covered, again, communication, transportation, as well as news related to China. There was a shakeup at Cathay Airlines, which has been, I guess, the flagship carrier for Hong Kong for decades, where the top chief executive Rupert Hogg and one of his top deputies have abruptly resigned, and apparently there's some troubles there due to, I guess, participation of some of their staff in the protests in Hong Kong. So they were experiencing some pressure from, China's civil aviation officials due to that. So that's pretty much it. That's a little kind of overview. I haven't, like I said, evaluated every single prediction, every single headline, but this is something that I had gathered from just perusing through major websites like Reuters, MarketWatch, etc. So if you have any additional news that you thought that my predictions have matched, or vice versa, that my predictions completely failed, please feel free to leave it in the comments, and come back next week and let's see what else I have caught. I will post a separate video covering the predictions for the August 2019 and how well I did on that. Okay, catch you all guys next week. Bye.